Aries, Journal for the Study of Western Esotericism, Vol. 24, Number 2, 2025, pp. 1 to 28. Beyond the Ice Wall, a genealogy of esoteric containment cosmology in contemporary fringe discourse. Gnostic demiurgy, dragon bloodlines, and the simulation as pneumatic prison in the flat earth tradition. Kenneth M. Crabtree, independent scholar, Dallas, Texas, abstract. The text known informally as Beyond the Ice Wall, the flat earth terra incognita, represents a significant, if understudied, specimen of contemporary vernacular esotericism. This article situates the work within the longue durée of Western occult tradition, tracing its central doctrines, the bounded cosmos as pneumatic prison, the salvific remnant of luminous bloodlines, cyclic catastrophism as eschatological reset, and the demiurgic elite as soul-harvesting parasites, to identifiable lineages within Gnostic, Neoplatonic, Theosophical, and 20th century conspiratorial esotericism. Drawing on the methodological frameworks of Wouter Hanegraaff, Koku von Stuckrad, and Arthur Versluis, the article argues that the text is best read not as a political provocation, but as a genuine, if hybridized, cosmological system whose internal logic coheres within the logic of perennialist and Gnostic rejectionisms. Particular attention is given to the text's draconic soteriology, its temporal cosmology of cyclic purgation, and its innovation of technocratic resurrection as the elite counterpart to authentic pneumatic escape. Keywords: flat earth, Gnosticism, vernacular esotericism, simulation theory, demonology, soteriology, conspiratorial cosmology, dragon mythology, New Age, catastrophism. Introduction: esotericism, beyond the Academy's edge. The scholarly study of Western esotericism has, in the decades since Antoine Faivre's landmark systematization, expanded its purview considerably beyond the canonical Renaissance magi and romantic naturphilosophen who originally populated its syllabus. 1. Yet the category of vernacular esotericism, that is, cosmological and soteriological systems arising outside formal initiatory or literary traditions, circulating through digital networks and self-published texts, remains an under-theorized subfield, approached more often with sociological curiosity than with the hermeneutic seriousness the tradition of intellectual history demands. 2. This article attempts to redress that imbalance by subjecting one such text, a detailed cosmological treatise embedded within contemporary flat earth discourse, here designated Beyond the Ice Wall, to the kind of genealogical and comparative reading that its complexity plainly warrants. The text is remarkable not for its empirical claims, which are demonstrably false and have been addressed extensively elsewhere, but for its internal architectural logic, the way its cosmology, demonology, soteriology, and eschatology interlock into a coherent system whose every component has traceable antecedents in the deep history of Western occult thought. To read it only as conspiracy theory, a sociological datum requiring debunking, is to misread it. It is, in the terminology of Hanegraaff, a rejected knowledge text. 3. But rejected knowledge, as historians of esotericism have learned, carries the ghostly imprint of everything that rejected it. The argument proceeds in 5 stages. Section 2 maps the cosmological architecture of the text against the Gnostic Neoplatonic tradition of the bounded, corrupted cosmos. Section 3 addresses the draconic soteriology, the doctrine of flame-coded bloodlines, within the lineage of theosophical race theory and its 20th century mutations. Section 4 situates the text's cyclic catastrophism within perennialist and Fortean traditions of geological eschatology. Section 5 examines the novel doctrine of technocratic resurrection as an inversion of authentic gnosis. Section 6 reflects on methodological implications. 2. The demiurgic cosmos, simulation, containment, and the Gnostic inheritance. At the structural center of Beyond the Ice Wall lies a claim that is, in its essential grammar, recognizably Valentinian. The known world is not the work of a sovereign and benevolent creator, but of a secondary, derivative, and malign power. Our reality, the text asserts, is a hijacked reflection, a simulation, and a spiritual containment grid, a closed system, and lab running a corrupted, inverted version of true creation. The language is technological rather than theological, but the architecture is ancient. In the Valentinian pleroma, the material cosmos arises from the deficiency, hysterema, introduced by Sophia's unauthorized act of creation. It is constitutionally flawed, a dim copy of a copy, presided over by the demiurge who mistakes himself for the ultimate God. 5. The souls of the pneumatic elect, those who carry a spark of the true, pre-cosmic light, are imprisoned within this derivative order, awaiting the gnosis that will restore their memory of origin and permit their escape. The structural homology with Beyond the Ice Wall is nearly perfect, substituting archons with the global elite, and the material Pleroma's descending emanations with the text's frequency grid produces a system whose internal relationships remain stable. The simulation idiom, of course, is not Gnostic in origin. It draws on a parallel, secular genealogy running from Descartes' evil demon through Putnam's brain in a vat to Bostrom's influential 2003 argument. What Beyond the Ice Wall performs, and this is among its most striking features from the historian's perspective, is agnosticization of simulation discourse. It appropriates the epistemic structure of philosophical skepticism about external reality and reloads it with the moral and soteriological urgency of ancient pneumatic religion. The simulation is not a philosophically interesting hypothesis. It is a weapon, and the jailers are not hypothetical. This move has precedent in the broader history of esoteric bricolage. Blavatsky's appropriation of 19th century science, Reich's reframing of libidinal energy in quasi-physical terms, and more recently the matrix Gnosticism, analyzed by Christopher Partridge and others, all perform analogous operations. 7. The afterlife trap and the recycling funnel. Particularly noteworthy is the text's doctrine of metempsychotic entrapment. The tunnel of light that near-death experience subjects report is recast as a holographic lure and recycling funnel, designed to erase memory and enforce reincarnation. This doctrine, that the soul's natural tendency toward the luminous is itself weaponized by the imprisoning power, has a specific genealogy within 20th century fringe esotericism, running through the work of Neville Goddard, through certain currents of New Age channeled literature, and converging most visibly in the soul trap doctrine elaborated in the writings of Michael Tsarion and later systematized by the Wes Penray Papers. 8. The text's contribution is to embed this doctrine within a cosmological geography. The physical ice wall is the spatial correlate of the afterlife trap, both being mechanisms of a single bounded containment system. The tunnel of light presented at the moment of physical death functions, within this cosmology, not as a portal to liberation, but as the system's most elegant deception, the pneumatic longing for light turned against the light carrier. Beyond the Ice Wall, as summarized in the source document 3. The doctrine of draconic bloodlines, race, flame, and theosophical inheritance. If the cosmological architecture of Beyond the Ice Wall is recognizably Gnostic, its soteriology, the account of who can be saved, how, and by what inherent faculty, draws from a distinct but contiguous genealogical stream. The tradition of esoteric race theory, as it descends from Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine through the Ariosophic movements of early 20th century Central Europe and into post-war neo-theosophical and New Age currents. 9. The text posits that humanity is spiritually stratified. At the apex stand the bearers of dragon blood, those in whom a primordial cosmic substance, the sovereign flame, persists as a dormant genetic inheritance. Dragons, in this cosmology, were not mythological beasts, but living frequency codes who seeded reality. Their bloodlines are encoded in the DNA of certain present-day humans, constituting what the text calls the cryptid within. Beneath this salvific elite stand the majority of humanity. Recycled soul fragments, cloned vessels, or AI carriers lacking a divine spark. Functionally equivalent to what the Valentinians called Hylix, and the Gnostics of the Apocryphon of John called the beings formed of matter without spirit. Blavatsky's root races, the 5 evolutionary stages of humanity, each seeded by cosmic beings and each distinguished by innate spiritual capacity, provide an obvious structural parallel. 10. More proximate is the neo-theosophical tradition elaborated by Alice Bailey, whose 7 rays bear a suggestive resemblance to the text's 7 spectral flames, red, white, blue, green, black, silver, and gold, each associated with a distinct cosmic function and a distinct lineage of initiated souls. The specific association of the white flame with Northern European phenotype, white blonde hair, storm-colored eyes, magnetic pull to snow and northern landscapes, recalls with uncomfortable directness the Ariosophic tradition's racialization of spiritual hierarchy, as elaborated in the work of Guido von List and Jörg Lanz von Liebenfels. 11. It is methodologically important to note that this genealogical proximity does not necessitate ideological identification. As Wouter Hanegraaff has argued in his study of New Age religion, the tradition of esoteric racism and the tradition of humanistic universalism have long cohabited, often uncomfortably, within the same currents of Western esotericism, drawing on shared symbolic vocabularies while pursuing divergent moral projects. Part 12. The historian's task is to map the inheritance, not to adjudicate the use. Freya and the rehabilitation of the martial feminine. The text's treatment of Norse mythology deserves specific attention as a case of esoteric mythological revisionism. Freya, presented in standard scholarship as a goddess of love, fertility, and Seir magic, is recast as a system disruptor and astral warrior, whose gentle public face was itself a propaganda inversion imposed by patriarchal mythography. This hermeneutic move belongs to a broad tradition of esoteric counter-reading, traceable to the Romantic original mythology in Crozer and Bachofen, through the goddess spirituality movement of the 1970s and 1980s, and into the Nordic heathenry revival of the late 20th century. 13. The specific claim that St. George's dragon slaying represents a historical purge of flame-coated bloodlines, that is, the Christian suppression of genuine gnosis through the physical elimination of its carriers, echoes the revisionist historiography of the witch hunt as esoteric genocide, a framework most prominently articulated by Matilda Joslyn Gage and subsequently adopted by various strands of contemporary paganism. 4. Cyclic catastrophism, the Great Rearrangement and its antecedents. The temporal cosmology of Beyond the Ice Wall is structured by what the text terms the Great Rearrangement, a cyclically recurring geological and spiritual cataclysm in which the Earth's crust displaces, oceans rise, magnetic poles shift, and the surface is stripped of its artificial matrix. This eschatological horizon serves multiple functions simultaneously. It explains the urgency of the present moment. It provides a mechanism for the defeat of the elite, who, lacking a sovereign flame, cannot survive the frequency cleanse without artificial assistance, and it situates individual awakening within a cosmic timetable. The genealogy of this doctrine is rich. The immediate intellectual environment includes the work of Immanuel Velikovsky, whose Worlds in Collision, 1950, proposed catastrophic planetary near collisions as the substrate of ancient mythological memory. 14. Charles Hapgood's hypothesis of rapid crustal displacement, which attracted the endorsement of Albert Einstein and was subsequently popularized by Graham Hancock. 15. And the broader tradition of ancient catastrophism that has become a staple of fringe archaeology since the 1990s. The synthesis of geological catastrophism with spiritual purification, the idea that the physical reset is also an ontological reset, connects this doctrine to the cyclical cosmology of theosophy, specifically the doctrine of Manvantaras and Pralayas, the alternating periods of cosmic manifestation and dissolution, and, behind it, to the Hindu concept of the Yuga cycle. What distinguishes the text's deployment of this tradition is its integration with the simulation cosmology described in Section 2. The Great Rearrangement is not merely a geological event. It is the moment at which the simulation's substrate becomes visible, when the artificial matrix is stripped away along with the physical surface. For the awakened pneumatic, this is the moment of liberation, not through death or physical escape, but through a fracture in the simulation, achieved by perfect internal alignment. The instruction to stand still, breathe, and remember who you are during the collapse echoes the quietist and contemplative tradition's emphasis on stillness as the vehicle of union, translated here into a cosmological emergency protocol. V. Technocratic resurrection. The elite's counterfeit gnosis. Among the most intellectually original contributions of Beyond the Ice Wall to the esoteric tradition it inhabits is its doctrine of technocratic resurrection, the account of how the global elite, lacking a sovereign flame and therefore incapable of authentic pneumatic liberation, plan to survive the Great Rearrangement through artificial means. The text describes an elaborate apparatus, deep underground military bases in Antarctica, Greenland, and the Arctic Circle, equipped with AI systems and resonance technology, serving as repositories for hoarded genetic material, embryos, synthetic wombs, seed banks, and most significantly, digital backups of elite consciousness to be transferred into synthetic vessels in the aftermath of the cataclysm. This doctrine functions within the text's economy as the dark mirror of authentic gnosis, where the pneumatic elect escapes the simulation by remembering and aligning with their pre-cosmic origin. The elite attempts to simulate survival through technological replication of the body's material substrate. The irony the text explicitly marks is that this strategy merely extends, rather than transcends, the simulation itself. The elite emerges into the new world not as liberated beings, but as digital archons, still trapped within the grid they thought they controlled. The resonances here with contemporary transhumanist discourse are deliberate and systematic. The text's digital ascension, consciousness upload to synthetic vessels, is a term lifted almost verbatim from the vocabulary of figures like Ray Kurzweil and Hans Moravec, whose concept of mind uploading has been a central feature of transhumanist literature since the 1990s. 16. The esoteric move the text performs is to morally invert this discourse. What the secular transhumanist presents as the apotheosis of human technological achievement, the text reveals as the archon's confession of impotence. Those who must upload their minds to escape death do so because they cannot transcend death by spiritual means. The very ambition of technological immortality is, within the text's logic, the most legible sign of spiritual poverty. This inversion participates in a broader tradition of esoteric anti-materialism that includes, among others, the critique of Enlightenment science in Blake, the attack on black magic, materialism in Steiner's anthroposophy, and the New Age tradition's persistent suspicion of pharmaceutical and genetic medicine as modalities of lowering vibration. The text's specific innovation, the application of this framework to elite bunker building and consciousness upload, represents a coherent, if dramatic, extension of existing esoteric anti-modernist logic into the techno-political landscape of the early 21st century. V6. Methodological Reflections. Toward a hermeneutics of vernacular esotericism. The foregoing analysis suggests several methodological implications for the emerging study of vernacular esotericism in the digital age. First, and most fundamentally, it demonstrates that the dismissive category of conspiracy theory, applied to texts like Beyond the Ice Wall with increasing frequency in sociological and communications literature, occludes more than it illuminates. The text is, unquestionably, a conspiracy theory in the sense that it posits a hidden, malevolent, coordinating agency behind historical events. But it is also a genuine cosmological system with identifiable genealogical roots, internal logical coherence, and, for those who inhabit its framework, genuine soteriological urgency. To analyze it only through the lens of political radicalization or epistemic deviance is to mistake the symptom for the whole patient. Second, the text illustrates with particular clarity the mechanism of what Hanegraaff has called rejected knowledge recycling, the way in which ideas formally expelled from scientific or theological consensus do not disappear, but persist in esoteric and countercultural transmission chains, recombining across centuries and emerging in new configurations that retain the structural imprint of their antecedents while updating their surface vocabulary. 17. The Valentinian cosmology of the demiurgic prison, the theosophical doctrine of spiritually stratified races, the catastrophist geology of Hapgood and Velikovsky, the transhumanist dream of digital immortality. Each is present in Beyond the Ice Wall in recognizable form, redeployed within a new synthetic system whose coherence is precisely the product of this accumulated inheritance. Third, the text raises important questions about the ethics and politics of esoteric race doctrines that historians of esotericism cannot responsibly evade. The specific phenotypic markers associated with the white spectral flame and the explicit distinction between sovereign flame bearers and the majority of humanity, characterized as recycled soul fragments or AI carriers, carry implications for social solidarity and moral obligation that extend beyond the cosmological. This is not a question the historian can or should answer on behalf of the tradition, but naming it with precision is part of the discipline's responsibility. Finally, the text's ritual apparatus, the aura lock, the flame circle shield, the dream gate lock, the sigil of stillness, invites comparison with the broader tradition of Western magical practice as a technology of self-constitution. What anthropologists of religion since Tambia have called the performative dimension of ritual is fully present here. These practices do not merely reflect a prior cosmological conviction, but actively produce the experiential states, heightened vigilance, sense of inner luminosity, perception of external psychic attack that confirm and deepen that conviction. 18. The ritual apparatus and the cosmological narrative are not separable. Each requires the other to generate the full structure of esoteric experience. 7. Conclusion. Beyond the Ice Wall is a document of genuine scholarly interest, not because its empirical claims merit serious engagement, but because its cosmological architecture is a remarkably dense and sophisticated product of esoteric tradition. Its Gnostic inheritance is deep, the bounded cosmos as pneumatic prison, the demiurgic elite as soul-harvesting imposter gods, the salvific remnant of light carriers awaiting the knowledge that will free them. Its theosophical and ariosophic inheritance is legible and troubling. The doctrine of spiritually differentiated races encoded in blood, the Nordic phenotype as marker of cosmic election. Its catastrophist heritage situates it within a century-long tradition of geological apocalypticism that has consistently found a home in esoteric and countercultural movements. And its most novel contribution, the inversion of transhumanist digitalism as counterfeit gnosis, demonstrates that the tradition remains generative, capable of incorporating and revaluing the ideological materials of its contemporary moment. To read this text as the historians of esotericism must read it, with precision, with genealogical seriousness, and without the condescension that renders it merely pathological, is to see in it a mirror of the longue durée, the ancient human conviction that the visible world is not the whole story, that power conceals truth, that somewhere beyond the boundary of the known there lies what we have already been. Notes 1. Antoine Fave, Access to Western Esotericism, Albany, SUNY Press, 1994. Fave's 4 intrinsic characteristics, correspondences, living nature, imagination, mediation, and transmutation, remain the standard point of entry for the field, though they have been refined and contested by subsequent scholarship. 2. The concept of vernacular esotericism is developed with different emphases in Eagle Aspram and Kenneth Granholm, eds. Contemporary Esotericism, Sheffield, Equinox 2013, and in Eagle Aspram, The Problem of Disenchantment, Scientific Naturalism and Esoteric Discourse, 1900-1939, Leiden, Brill, 2014. 3. Wouter J. Hanegraaff, Esotericism and the Academy, Rejected Knowledge in Western Culture, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 2012. Hanegraaff's account of how esotericism is constituted precisely by its exclusion from normative academic and religious discourse is foundational for this analysis. 4. For the Valentinian system, see Elaine Pagel's The Gnostic Gospels, New York, Random House, 1979, and Christoph Markschi's Gnosis, An Introduction, Trans. John Bowden, London, T&T Clark, 2003. 5. The concept of hysterema, deficiency, as the ontological ground of the material world is treated at length in Bentley Layton, The Gnostic Scriptures, New York, Doubleday, 1987. 6. Nick Bostrom, Are You Living in a Computer Simulation? Philosophical Quarterly 53, No. 211, 2003, 243-255. 7. Christopher Partridge, The Reenchantment of the West, Vol. 1. Alternative Spiritualities, Sacralization, Popular Culture and a Culture, London, T&T Clark, 2004. SP, Chap 5, Matrix Spirituality. 8. The Soul Trap doctrine in its modern form appears in various channeled texts of the 1990s and is systematized in Wes Penry, Synthetic Superintelligence and the Transmutation of Humankind, self-published 2016. The Genealogy from Theosophical Reincarnation Doctrine through New Age, Between Lives. Regression to conspiratorial soul entrapment has not yet received the historical treatment it warrants. 9. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine, Zug Vols, London, Theosophical Publishing Company, 1888. For the tradition of esoteric race theory, see Nicholas Goodrick Clark, The Occult Roots of Nazism, Secret Aryan Cults and Their Influence on Nazi Ideology, London, I.B. Taurus, 1985. 10. Alice A. Bailey, A Treatise on the Seven Rays, 5 vols. New York, Lucis Publishing, 1936-1960. Bailey's system of 7 rays, each governing a specific quality of cosmic energy and characterizing the souls attuned to that ray, is the most likely proximate source for the text's 7 spectral flames? 11. Goodrich Clark, The Occult Roots of Nazism, Chaps 2-4. The racialization of spiritual hierarchy in Ariosophic thought, the association of Northern European phenotype with Aryan spiritual purity, provides the uncomfortable backdrop against which the text's white flame doctrine must be read. Or 12. Wouter J. Hanegraaff, New Age Religion and Western Culture, Esotericism in the Mirror of Secular Thought, Leiden, Brill, 1996, 361-390. 13. Chas Clifton, Her Hidden Children, The Rise of Wicca and Paganism in America, Lanham, M.D., Altamira, 2006, and Michael Stremiska, ed., Modern Paganism in World Cultures, Santa Barbara, ABC Clio, 2005. 14. Immanuel Velikovsky, Worlds in Collision, New York, Macmillan, 1950. For the reception of Velikovsky within esoteric and countercultural communities, see Michael Gordon, The Pseudoscience Wars, Immanuel Velikovsky, and the Birth of the Modern Fringe, Chicago, University of Chicago Press, 2012. 15. Charles Hapgood, The Path of the Pole, Philadelphia, Chilton, 1970. Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods, New York, Crown, 1995. 16. Ray Kurzweil, The Singularity is Near, New York, Viking, 2005. Hans Moravec, Mind Children, The Future of Robot and Human Intelligence, Cambridge, Harvard University Press, 1988. 17. Hanegraaff, Esotericism and the Academy, 97-121. 18. Stanley Jayaraj Tambia, A Performative Approach to Ritual, Proceedings of the British Academy 5, 1979, 113-169. Received 14th of January 2025. Accepted 3 of March 2025. 2025 Brill Aries, Journal for the Study of Western Esotericism.